Rain clouds gathered above the city that afternoon, but outside Mercy General Hospital, the storm had already begun. A 6-year-old girl stood trembling on the asphalt, clutching the folds of her sky-blue dress, tears streaking down her dirt-stained cheeks. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak, her words lost beneath the hum of traffic and the cruel laughter of 3 men standing at the hospital gate. Her small hand pointed toward the glass doors where her mother, pale and barely standing, was being held back. The child's words pierced the air like a cry from another world. "They won't let my mommy in." If you believe kindness can still change the world, if you believe good hearts still rise when darkness closes in, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Hope Fuse. Because what happened next will remind you why humanity is worth believing in. Her name was Sophie Turner, a child too young to understand cruelty, but old enough to recognize fear. Her mother, Laura, had been working double shifts at a local diner for months, fighting to afford her medication after a severe infection, left her weak and barely able to breathe when Laura collapsed at home. That morning, Sophie did what any little girl would. She grabbed her hand, ran into the street, and begged for help. But fate had a darker sense of timing. That day, the hospital's front entrance was under renovation, and the only open gate was temporarily watched by 3 contractors, rough, cold, and heartless men who treated the struggling mother like an inconvenience rather than a human life. They blocked the doors, sneering, telling her to wait until shift change. Sophie cried, pulling at their sleeves, begging them to move. But the men just laughed. One of them, tall, with a grey sleeveless hoodie and cigarette between his lips, waved her off like she was a pest. The second leaned against the wall, taking videos on his phone. As if her pain were entertainment, the third, heavier, with a red flannel shirt, muttered that people like her could wait their turn. And through it all, Laura's breathing grew heavier. Her knees buckled once, twice, until she fell against the glass, pressing a hand to her stomach. Sophie screamed for help, but no one came. The few bystanders nearby averted their eyes, pretending not to see. Then came the sound that changed everything, the deep, thunderous rumble of motorcycle engines. Sophie turned, startled, as 5 bikes rolled slowly down the street. Noise made the thugs glance over, but they didn't pay much attention until the riders parked just a few meters away. The engines fell silent, and all that remained was the rhythmic clicking of cooling metal and the echo of heavy boots hitting pavement. At the front of the group was a man built like iron and time itself, writer Callan, late 40s, weathered by years of road and storm. His beard was streaked with grey, his arms inked with memories of battles fought, and brothers lost. The black leather vest he wore bore 2 simple patches, Hell's Angels and ILCHLLS. His eyes, sharp and cold, scanned the scene, the crying child, the men at the gate, the woman collapsing by the glass. For a long second, no one moved. Sophie took a step forward, wiping her tears, her voice trembling. "Please," she said, "those men won't let my mommy in the hospital." Ryder crouched down in front of her, his leather creaking as he met her eye to eye. The child's trembling reflection shimmered in his mirrored sunglasses. Then quietly he stood, and the look in his eyes changed everything. Without a word, he handed his gloves to one of his men, turned toward the hospital, and began to walk. The others followed, spreading out like a storm front moving over a field. The 3 thugs froze. Their laughter died mid-breath. Ryder's boots echoed against the asphalt, steady and deliberate, until he stood right before them. "Move," was all he said, his voice low, gravelly, final. The man in the hoodie sneered and tried to speak, but Ryder's stare cut him down faster than words. Behind him, his brothers stepped closer, their tattoos gleaming under the sun, their faces unreadable. The largest of them, a bald giant named Mace, rested one hand on a parked motorcycle, silent, but every muscle tense. The second, younger biker with long brown hair, folded his arms and tilted his head, waiting. It didn't take long. The thug stepped aside, muttering excuses, eyes avoiding contact. Ryder nodded once toward Laura, still kneeling by the glass, and gently lifted her arm over his shoulder. "She's going in," he said quietly. The automatic doors slid open without another sound. Inside, the staff rushed to help. Nurses appeared with stretchers, doctors shouted instructions, and Sophie ran beside her mother, holding her hand until she disappeared behind the curtains of the emergency ward. Outside the biker stood guards, silent sentinels under the noonday sun. When Ryder finally walked back out, Sophie ran straight into his arms. She was crying again, but this time from relief. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled faintly, brushed her hair back, and told her, "You're braver than most grown men I know." He didn't stay long, just long enough to make sure Laura was safe. Before he left, he placed a folded $20 bill in Sophie's hand. On it, written in pen, were 3 words: "For Mom's medicine." As the engines roared to life again, the hospital staff stood at the windows, watching in silence. No one would forget that moment, not because of the leather jackets or the noise of the motorcycles, but because they saw something pure that day. In a world that often turns away from pain, 5 men stopped. And in stopping, they changed a life. When Laura woke up later that evening, Sophie was by her side, clutching the note like a treasure. "Who helped us?" she asked softly. Sophie smiled and said, "Angels, Mommy, hell's angels." If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can come from where you least expect it, please like, share, and subscribe to Hope Fuse, where real stories of compassion remind us what humanity still means. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were there that day? Because sometimes one act of courage is all it takes to change someone's forever.